Hello and welcome to today's yoga question. We are joined by Pete Longworth. Hello.
Hello, my dear.
Thank you for being here.
Such a
So
pleasure.
what I want to ask you, you are a photographer. That's probably what it says on Pete's business card, photographer. But I've been working with Pete for the past 6 months, so much more. I've been learning the photography, mindset, creativity, storytelling, getting out of my own way. What I wanted to ask you today, Pete, is about being photographed. Something you said months ago that caught my attention is that no matter what industry we're in now, we're all responsible for visual storytelling. So if you have a bakery or you're a yoga teacher, it doesn't matter. You still are presenting yourself probably online in the world. And part of that is being photographed. Many of us feel uncomfortable when we're being photographed. What tips, ideas, tricks do you have for us to be more graceful in that dynamic?
Okay. The first thing I recommend is get connected as to why you're doing it in the first place. And really understand that the content you create is for you. And while ever you're attempting to create content or have images taken where the first thought is how this is going to be perceived by something external of me, or how much is the algorithm going to like this, you're already limiting the capacity of the content you're creating. So my first and strongest suggestion is tune in to why you're creating content in the first place and why it's important for you.
Yeah.
That will give you the gift of creating so much freedom, because I think it's very hard. And to the point that you raised, so many people, and in particular yoga teachers, like whether you like it or not, you're now a content creator. You know, you spent all this time learning the craft, dropping in, doing the countless hours of meditation and movement and getting alignment and attuned, and you got to such a level. And then it's like, oh, but if I'm going to do this, I need to understand how to run a business.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing. And especially for those of us who are not like naturally wired that way, because hey, we did all of this. Oh, and now I need to learn how to run a business to be successful. Because if you don't do that, it doesn't matter how amazing your practice is, it's never going to have the impact it deserves. And now we get to layer on top of that, that now you are, thanks to social, you are your own marketing team. And you are responsible for getting yourself out there and being in the mix. So first of all, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so if anyone is out there feeling stressed and obligated and pressured, like just know that you're not alone, especially for people who never intended to be content creators. So the first thing is like, let's work on the mindset of like, oh, okay, I'm doing my best. I'm not a content creator, but I'm going to figure this out. There are lots of ways you can up-level your content creation, and we can mention those later. But the most important thing is to feel good about the content you're creating, because if you're having fun creating content, your content will be fun.
Yeah.
If you're stressed and feeling obligated, that is going to seep through in the content creation. So my first and my biggest suggestion, invitation, is to really look at the mindset upon which you're creating content in the first place.
All right, I want to dive a little deeper there. I had this great insight with you, Pete, in our very first session together. I remember you asked the whole class, what voice do we hear in our head that prevents us from posting things on Instagram? And I had this flash of like, it's the 13-year-old Lizzie inside of me who's saying like, you're going to look fat. You look fat. You are fat. People think you're fat. Everybody knows it. Like, and I'm not fat. Like, I don't, but just saying that out loud, I heard that inner critic coming up, and whatever your voice, each of us has maybe our own neuroses that we're experiencing when we think about sharing. So in that moment, when I'm being photographed, you as a professional photographer have worked with so many people. What do you whisper to them? What do you say to people to help them shift their internal state to be ready to be seen by the lens?
Okay. Well, let me just politely pilate that back to you. What do you tell your students when they need to calm and drop in?
Always the same. It's the simplest thing. It's like, go to your belly, drop into the breath, soften.
Yeah, that's it. It's like I will pull people up when we start to work, and it's like, okay, there's going to be moments that arise in this, in the same way that you'll have these moments of like holding postures, and when you like feel like the muscle shake and you're already done, it's like, can you soften and release? Like, so in those moments where these photographs but happen, this idea of like trying to reach out or trying to be like present or posture this kind of version of yourself, um or like looking for things out here, and it's like, just stop and like take a breath and come from the inside out.
Yeah.
And it's especially important, like this is the perfect time as a yoga practitioner and someone sharing gifts to just sip on your own medicine, because this is the time that you get to actually put fully into practice all of the things that you beautifully teach.
Mm. Yeah, one of the things that I love about studying with you is this, through the magic of probably 1,000 cables and Bluetooth and technology and adapters, you can put us inside of your camera. So we get to watch you shoot. And I've done that a bunch of times now, seen Pete shoot like a portrait shoot with different people, and just watching like what you're seeing inside of your frame, and then saying, look at how this, and look at how this is like. And even things like this was really big for me, looking at how different lighting by shifting the camera is more or less flattering for a more masculine or feminine face, or like depending, even if we have,
Yeah.
even if we're women but we want to project a more masculine, and even the height of the camera, like even being slightly above or slightly below, creates a different sense of authority or
Mhm.
diminishment. So
Yeah.
as we move to close, my kind of last question for you is, where so when you're photographing someone,
Mhm.
like, okay, when I'm being photographed, sometimes I
Yeah.
have the instinct to project out, like I almost want to show you something. Like I have the sense of feeling, wanting to pose myself, wanting to pose myself.
Mhm.
But often the best images, I of course know I'm being photographed, but are feel more candid. So any last words you can
Yeah.
offer us, how we can move ourselves into that more candid space, so more natural space when we're being
Mhm.
photographed?
Sure. For sure. Um, I've done a huge amount of work with Elena Brower. I've been documenting her. She, she's like my Kate Moss for a very long time. I've had the privilege of creating what the bulk of everything that's on her website, worked intimately with her on retreats. And she's a really beautiful embodiment of like be involved, be co-creative. So in those moments of like, okay, don't be like, oh, I'm having my pictures taken or something. So no, I'm actually co-creating this experience. And we were speaking about the dance that you have with your beloved in taking pictures, and like it's as much about the intimacy. If you think about it as a dance, if you think about this opportunity to engage with the person behind the lens and to make
Yeah.
that experience like fun and free and authentic, rather than like, okay, stiffen up like a board and like, okay, now I need to do this, and like create an environment. So much of it is like pre-production. Like what time are you most vibrant?
Yeah.
What do you do to feel amazing? Have you already just done a yoga practice? Like so much
Oh
of
my
it
God.
is like,
This today I was like, we got up at 4:30 with the kid, one of our kids. And then I was like, in my pajamas, having a coffee still at 8, and Pete and I were going to meet at 9. And I just looked at my husband and I was like, I have to be radiant at 9. Like, I don't, and he was just like, Shotzi, you are radiant. Okay. You don't have to do anything.
oh
Like, it was such a beautiful moment where he was like, you don't have to do your hair. Like, nothing, you are radiant.
yeah.
Like, that's what you're saying.
And the other thing is like, just get in and do it, because it's like the more you do it, the more relaxed you come at it. And it's kind of like, whatever you allow it to be this large troll under the bridge that you never look at, that you never lead into, it's always going to be more fearful than it actually is. So
Yeah.
my suggestion is, get out of the way, get into the dance, and enjoy the playground.
Okay, this is,
Because
yeah.
I mean, think about it. The big burning ball of gas, like blue-green planet spinning around, showing people how to move their body and breathe. Like, we don't need to freeze.
Oh no, Pete is frozen. He's in the jungle in Bali. Hopefully he will reappear in a moment. But what I wanted to share with you all before we close, is that I have the experience, the practice when I'm being photographed, again, of trying to witness or watch my internal state. And hey, okay, I'm continuing to flow. You dropped off from the jungle of Bali, but I wanted to say this last thing before we close. For me, it has been a huge shift. This was catalyzed by a conversation with Pete, to witness and pay attention simultaneously to my internal state when I'm being photographed. And the recent insight I had, for example, my Nico partner was photographing me, and I realized that I had a kind of anxiety, a pressure, an urgency, which was leaking out onto him, because I had the thought, I'm not going to get what I need. It was like a sense of greediness in the shoot. Like I knew we were at a lake, and I knew that the photos I want, and the kids were there, and I was like, okay, quick, let's do it, quick. I had this sense of urgency, which of course he doesn't react well to, because it's annoying when your wife is like, do it now. And for me, just that shift of being able to acknowledge it, feel it in real time, and then say something to him later, like, hey, I'm sorry, I just get really anxious about getting the photos. And just these slight things I can say, working with you has been such a revelation, because what I realized, and I was saying to my friend Georgia yesterday, like, there's nobody else in my life aside from this community that you're building, Pete, these classes that I've been in with you, where I can talk about these things with. Because, like, I can't at dinner, every dinner party, be like, let's talk about my anxiety about being photographed. Like, I can't, like, it's like, or let's talk about what camera or what lighting or how to frame a great shot. Like, this little move is straight Pete, instead of me being centered here, is like, oh, look at that. Okay, thank you for being here with us on YouTube. Yep. Tell us, Pete. So Pete is continually launching things, opening up new courses, offers. Tell us, where's the number one place of entry, one website where people can go to find you on the internet?
PeteLongworth.com.
Okay, I'm here. Come find me, Lizzie, ie.yoga. And I do a weekly newsletter and monthly free meditation or restorative events. The links only go out there on the Sunday Shavasana series. Pete, always a pleasure.
It is such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Lizzie. It's always a delight to share space with you, my dear.
Bye, everyone. Goodbye, team behind the scenes, Carolina and Pranita. We love you.
Much love, darling.